situation. Can he get in? No, he cannot.
Yeah, I said it, we are. This is Rock Nation. Pledge your allegiance.
The goal line stand, two-man panel starting out, but I'm sure this will quadruple before long. And the post-regular season first show here, or post-regular season show, whichever you want to call it. Me, Michael Washington, as always, your host. Justin Arth, my co-host, is with me as well. Our resident quarterback is back with us. He's from Texas, or he's in Texas, I should say. And his Wi-Fi is a little suspect at times, but I think it's good right now.
Hopefully it'll be fine during the show.
What's up, man? How you doing? How was your weekend, bro?
Oh, I'm great.
Yeah, no doubt. How was your weekend, brother?
Yeah, college football playoffs. Hey, gotta love that. Final week of the regular season, NFL. So we're all in postseason mode now. So college football's done. We're in postseason mode. Black Mondays now happen. So no, it's all good for the world unless you're one of those Black Monday guys like the shirt I'm wearing. You end up losing your job.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, speaking about Black Monday, it was a relatively quiet Black Monday in comparison to several of the other Black Mondays of the past. I think the Atlanta Falcons probably fired Arthur Smith at halftime of their game, and they couldn't release it until 12:01 a.m. on Monday because it was literally at 12:01 a.m. on Monday that he was fired. Kind of surprised some people, I think, but at the same time, I think it was also kind of an expected move. I think the people that were more surprised was just because the Falcons were never truly out of the running for a playoff spot, I guess, until they were actually out of it. I think they were eliminated in week 17. They had a very slim chance, but they were eliminated in week 17. So despite all of that, Arthur Smith, out in Atlanta, Ron Rivera and GM Martin Mayhew out in Washington, which was an expected move as well. And then head coach Mike Vrabel was fired today, actually, on Gray Tuesday or whatever the hell you want to call it. And then Wink Martindale stepped down in New York. The Jacksonville Jaguars fired Mike Caldwell, the defensive coordinator there. They also fired their running backs coach, but they did not fire Press Taylor, which a lot of people in Jacksonville are a little suspect about. But overall, focusing just on the head coaching vacancies, we're talking Carolina, Los Angeles, Las Vegas, Atlanta, Tennessee, Washington, and then New England is to be expected. I'm sure that this decision is definitely going to be a long decision just because of the magnitude of what Bill Belichick means to that franchise. I did not expect that to be on Monday. A lot of people were like, oh, how come he's not fired yet? And I'm like, dude, I think out of respect, that's going to be a little bit of a lengthy one. Are you surprised by any of the coaches that were fired? Because to me, I'm not. A lot of people were surprised by Mike Vrabel. Were you surprised? Was that the most surprising one to you or no?
Yeah, Vrabel was the most surprising to me, but it wasn't necessarily surprising that he's leaving the position. It was more surprised in the way that Tennessee did it. Because I think level of coach that Vrabel truly is, you can't truly go and say, hey, we're firing you. At least go split ways, mutually part ways, do something to kind of save his image as well. But at the end of the day, Mike Vrabel is going to be a pretty hot commodity probably this offseason. But no, in reality, though, Tennessee did feel like we're kind of in the same situation where potentially in Pittsburgh, if Mike Tomlin decides to move on from Pittsburgh, or if obviously the Patriots decide to move on from Bill Belichick, that it could be a right coach, but the message doesn't necessarily sit with the players or the team or the culture or the locker room anymore, and it's just time for a change. Doesn't mean that they're not a great coach. It's just that the message needs to change in the locker room. And so I think with Vrabel, I think that's what this situation was. He wasn't involved in the meetings to hire the GM last year, which I think is a big sign that he probably wasn't going to be the guy moving forward, because GMs come in and they want their guy, just like how they want their quarterback. They want their staff around them. So, and then you see how the deal panned out for guys like Derrick Henry and other big free agents that they have on this roster too. It's kind of setting up perfectly for okay, this is Will Levis's franchise moving forward. We're going to hire a head coach. The GM that has now been hired is the one that chose Levis. We're going to try to kind of clean house from the old Vrabel era and move forward into this new era with Levis and all that, which I completely understand. It's just the way Tennessee did it kind of surprises me. But I do think this sets Vrabel up for a lot of potential opportunities. I mean, I can think of 3 off the top of my head. And now as a half Falcons fan, I love Mike Vrabel in Atlanta. But at the end of the day, I think if New England does go their separate ways, I think it's either Gerard Mayo or Mike Vrabel as the next head man in New England.
Well, that was going to be my next question to you, is because how much of this decision, and obviously we know the NFL's got a lot of politics behind the scenes. There's a lot of issues with that as far as that's concerned. In your opinion, how much of this decision to fire Mike Vrabel came because of the report that came out yesterday that Vrabel would love to return to New England as a head coach? And maybe Tennessee felt it was time to move on because maybe they felt that he wasn't there. So do you think that factored at all into the decision, or do you think that that's just kind of a coincidence that the report came out and then he was fired the next day?
I mean, I would lean more towards a coincidence, but no, I mean, there's so many different levels to all of this. I mean, we're never the fly on the wall like we'd like to be, so we never know what the true reasons behind it are. But no, there has to be multifacets within this, and obviously Vrabel being inducted to the Patriots Ring of Honor and sitting there with a red jacket on and stuff like that earlier in the year or last week or whatever it was, probably didn't sit too well with Tennessee Titans fans because you're wearing another AFC team's red and all that other kind of stuff too. So there might be a lot of built up things there. But no, I mean, I think Vrabel is probably the perfect solution, probably even more so than Gerard Mayo in New England, even though I think both would be very capable candidates of New England, because at the end of the day, they're still New England guys. They are still Belichick guys.
Right.
And that's why I feel like that's where New England would go with it. But no, I mean, there's multifacets to it, but it is going to be interesting to see where teams like Atlanta or Tennessee truly do go. Cause I think Atlanta or Los Angeles are the two like ready-made landing spots for a coach to come in and actually make a difference. Cause Atlanta, you can say is maybe missing the quarterback. But I have some questions about Desmond Ridder, but I think I have more hopes for Ridder if they get the right coach behind him than maybe other people do. But that's just what I'm seeing on film the last couple of weeks. He has mistakes with turnovers. We can get into that later if we talk Falcons. But
yep.
I mean,
well,
they just
circle back to Ridder anyways.
Yeah. So, but you look at that, and Atlanta's basically ready-made. They have playmakers. Arthur Smith, the reason why he was fired is he never really had the locker room to begin with. But he, at the same time, he didn't utilize his playmakers. He has one of the best offensive staffs in football and a quarterback that if you could learn how to get off their second read or get off the first read to a second read, he'd actually be pretty good. And very CJ Stroud-esque. There's a lot of things in Atlanta that could have and should have gone right. The defense even stepped up and made improvements. And it's just the unfortunate situation that it didn't work out in Atlanta. And so that's a ready-made situation. Then you look at LA, like LA is about to go through kind of a big move to kind of reset everything. I mean, they've got a lot of guys on big numbers coming up here soon. A lot of free agents upcoming in here in the next year or two. I mean, Justin Herbert's getting close to getting that or he's already got the massive deal, but you've got Justin Herbert there. So you don't necessarily need to worry about the quarterback unless LA decides they want to trade him off and completely gut the whole franchise. But no, I mean, I think those are the two ready-made situations. Then you're looking at Tennessee needs kind of a rebuild, even though you have the young quarterback, and then New England, New England needs everything on offense. So,
yeah, New England's a nightmare over there up here. I mean, New England's up here. It's a mess up here. Like, it's a nightmare in that sense. And honestly, everything that I've been reading and seeing is Washington is actually the most appealing landing spot, which I actually found interesting. But it's because there's an abundance of draft picks there, and because they have the most cap space heading into next year at this moment in time. So it kind of is an appealing thing. They also have a young offense. They have a moldable quarterback. And I say a moldable because I think that Sam Howell can be molded. It's just a matter of who they get into that spot. It's very similar to how you feel about Ritter. And in Atlanta is who are you going to get into that spot, and are you going to roll with Howell? That's the biggest question. Shout out to Facebook user. You don't have a name here. I'm glad that you are listening to us, and I don't think Mike Tomlin's leaving Pittsburgh either. But that situation's a little stagnant at this point. It's kind of stale. Like he gets just by and does just enough. But he had a great coaching year this year, getting that team into the playoffs.
Yeah, no, I mean, Mike Tomlin, I would lean on the side of would be the guy to stay. Yeah, I would lean towards Mike Tomlin staying. But at the same time, I know there are rumors that Tomlin may be wanting either something different or he might want to be stepping away from football. I don't necessarily believe all that, but obviously you have to talk about it because there are rumors circling about it.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that it's one of the things that a lot of people here or a lot of people are wondering is some of these coaches. Pete Carroll said he's going to come back in Seattle, but dude's 72 years old, or 73 years old. So there's obviously some other opponents here that even some playoff teams may be looking for a new coach, maybe depending on what happens. Mike McCarthy in Dallas, where you are down in Texas right now. If they're one and done and lose to, Tampa Bay or whoever it is that they're playing, I don't remember who they're playing. Green Bay. If they lose to Green Bay, which is a very possibility with the way Green Bay's been playing lately, Mike McCarthy could be gone in Dallas, which I think Dallas is closer to being a nightmare situation than it is a great situation, honestly. And I don't know if I'm wrong for saying that or if it's a bias that I'm just not really tapping into being a Washington fan. But I look at that team and I really honestly feel like it might be gearing up to be more of a nightmare for a future coach than it is necessarily a welcoming situation. I don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah, no, with Dallas, it's hard to say. I mean, because obviously you have the whole Jerry Jones factor, and Jerry wants to do it his way. Steven wants to do it his way. But then you obviously have the cap situation. This is not necessarily an old team, but it's not necessarily a young team anymore either. And so you have the quarterback that's already getting paid. You have CeeDee Lamb that's about to have to get paid. I mean, it depending on how this situation with Mike McCarthy goes, it looks like it could be like a ready-made situation for a coach like a Sean Payton type coach to come in for 1 year and let's glory run this thing to a Super Bowl 1 year, and then we're going to have to completely gut everything and rebuild. But no, I mean, everything that I'm hearing in Dallas radio and stuff like that is, even though Jerry hasn't officially said Mike McCarthy's the coach, he's under contract next year. And I don't think this is going to be a conversation until this time next year, as long as they don't go out and get their butts smacked by Green Bay in Dallas.
Yeah, we'll get predictions a little bit later on the playoff round. Everything's set too. We've talked about a few teams that are kind of hot, some teams that are not. Philadelphia, we'll talk about them as well, heading into that disastrous second half of a year. Down the stretch there as well, which I'm not going to say I'm sad about either. Tennessee, back to the Tennessee situation real quick, because like you were mentioning before, the team is kind of a little bit ready-made, but to me, I feel like this team is actually probably further away from being ready-made.
Oh, yeah. Tennessee's a rebuild. Tennessee's blown up.
Sorry, you were talking about Atlanta. My fault.
Atlanta, yeah. Atlanta and LA.
Yeah, Tennessee is definitely going to need, I think, to be a rebuild. And I saw something online earlier today that said the A.J. Brown trade is why Mike Vrabel got fired and the GM got fired and blah, blah, blah. And I honestly don't think that they had a choice. Yeah. I think the GM that got fired there last year got fired there because of the other contracts that he had in place, not because of the A.J. Brown trade, because there were some pretty nightmarish contracts on that roster, and Ryan Tannehill is one of them that comes to mind. And Bud Dupree hasn't really lived up to the amount of money in the cap hit that he had. So
and you look at how Tennessee's drafted too. Their draft classes haven't been worldly, and I'm talking from a even biased perspective because I'm friends with one of their draft picks. So
right,
and so they necessarily haven't hit on their draft picks either. And that was most of the old regime because I believe the old regime was the last class with Malik and Traylon Burks and stuff like that. So. I mean, they haven't necessarily hit on those either. So when you're not stockpiling talent again, you kind of start seeing what's happening like in New England, where you're not necessarily bringing in young, fresh talent and you're relying on old dudes to kind of gracefully age.
Yeah, and speaking of New England, and I'll touch real fast on Tennessee real quick. I still hold a little bit of hope for Treylon Burks. I think that he just needs to get healthy, figure out a different regimen to get him healthy, figure out where something's going wrong for him, because really health has been his biggest issue. I do like Chiggy, their young tight end. I think that he's a Okonkwo. I think that he's I think that he's a wonderful athlete and a great weapon to be utilized if they can find the right group. I like Tyjae Spears as well. But the quarterback position is still a question mark, even with Will Levis, because even though Will Levis has played well, what are you going to do to help him out? Because that offensive line is also not getting any better either. So that's my take a little bit on Tennessee. I think that they're just better off just kind of going like, we're going to just rebuild, let Derrick Henry go, and just let some of those guys on the defensive side that we invested a bunch of money in that didn't pan out, and hope that we can kind of bounce back in a couple of years to get this. I think that that's going to probably be a 2 to 4 year window for whoever comes in. And I hope in today's day and age where it's like, what have you done for me lately in the NFL? Yeah. That whoever comes in gets that opportunity. Now, New England is an interesting situation for me because I don't think Bill Belichick, the coach, has been the problem in New England. I think Bill Belichick, the GM, has been the problem, and not saying any knock against any of the players that he has taken. But one of the things that Belichick loves to do is he loves to find the gem. So sometimes he reaches for players like Cole Strange, for instance. The Rams thought he was going to be available in the 5th round. You know what I mean? And they took him in the 1st. They shelled out money to Juju Smith-Schuster when they could have kept Jacoby Myers, who already knew the offense and probably got better production out of. Is there a way that you could see maybe Kraft coming to Belichick and saying, if you relinquish the team personnel side and stay on as a coach, you can stay here? Or do you think that Belichick just may be like, it might be time for me to move on and see if I can do this somewhere else?
Yeah, so I actually have some connections to New England, so I guess you can say I have a little bit of insider information here. But everything that I hear from my quote-unquote sources that I have tell me that Bill Belichick is a coach that still wants to coach football. He loves football with everything he's got. And still wants to be around the game. And if that means taking a back seat from a general manager role, or even taking a head seat from a head coaching role and being a defensive coordinator somewhere, he seems now, maybe not 5 years ago this was him, but now he seems willing to do that. And so I think there's especially with these elongated conversations that Robert Kraft and Bill Belichick and the other younger Kraft are having the conversations with Bill. I think a lot of this is going to end up resulting in Bill Belichick staying the head coach, but relinquishing the GM duties and finding somebody else to do that. However, I also could see a world where, since Mike Vrabel is available, that they talk Gerard Mayo into staying a defensive coordinator. Bill Belichick may only be the GM, which obviously I don't think is the best thing for the organization, but he stays the GM and relinquishes the head coaching duties to Vrabel. I think that is a plausible world that could potentially happen. But I do think Bill Belichick, I do think of everything, I think the highly likelihood is that Bill Belichick releases the GM duties and stays in New England. And if they cannot agree to that, then he would probably be going on to LA there. And if not, then Vrabel could be LA, Vrabel could be Atlanta, or like if a McCarthy situation or something random just unfolds where teams don't do well in the postseason and want to fire their coach, Vrabel could be a landing spot there. But no, I mean, it's going to be interesting to truly see where they go with this. But I do think Bill Belichick is willing to let some of these responsibilities go to stay in New England, to coach football, and just be a football dude.
Yeah. Let me ask you here on a more positive note instead of the Black Monday side of things. Who is your coach of the year at this moment in time? It's a loaded one, but who's your coach of the year? Oh, I think I might have lost Justin. I think he froze here. Hopefully it comes back. I'm not sure.
All right, I got you back now.
There we are. There he is. He's not frozen anymore. I got him now. His mouth is moving.
Yeah. Gotta love this Wi-Fi stuff. But all right, so just my take on the NFL Coach of the Year stuff.
I just want a name, and we can discuss it afterwards. I just want a name who you think is the Coach of the Year, and I'll give mine, and then we can either debate or discuss if we agree.
Where I feel like it should go versus where I think it's going to go are two different things.
Okay, well, give me both. Give me both.
I think it should go to a guy like DeMeco Ryans in Houston.
Okay.
And what he's done there. But I do think because of the story and the franchise being such a losing organization and now they're a winning one, I could see Dan Campbell end up taking Coach of the Year.
Okay. I think that's fair. I think Dan Campbell should win it. I think DeMeco Ryans is definitely in the running for it, but I think it should go to Kevin O'Connell in Cleveland. This team,
you mean Stefanski in Cleveland?
Kevin Stefanski. Sorry,
yeah, they're both Vikings guys. You know,
yeah, they're
I'm
both
cool
Vikings.
I'm cool with that either way.
Both Vikings guys with the same name, Kevin, in it. Yeah, Kevin Stefanski. I think you should go to see Kevin Stefanski in Cleveland.
Okay.
I mean,
I can see that too. I'm not opposed to it.
Houston's a great story, right? You know, you're the second overall pick. You got a rookie quarterback, a rookie head coach. You win in the end of the discussion, though, is I believe they were only a 9-win team, right? I think they got in 9-8. They get 10-7.
Yep.
So they got into 10-7, which it took week 18 to get that 10th win.
Yep.
But the rest of that division wasn't exactly stellar. Like it was good. It just wasn't, oh my God, there's a lot of tough talent there. The Jaguars were in that process, and they had a meltdown in the second half of the year, whether it was injuries or whatever it may be. The Cleveland Browns did it in a division where
every team had a winning record.
Made the playoffs, and 11 wins every team had a winning record, right? So you are talking in an AFC division situation, you win double-digit games with a team that probably shouldn't even have come close, considering you had 4 different starting quarterbacks. So I think the job that Stefanski did just outweighs DeMeco Ryans. And Dan Campbell, as much as I love that story and as great as it's been for Detroit, they were fairly healthy all year.
Yeah.
The Browns didn't have that and still went in and fucked shit up in the AFC, pardon the language, but they did. That's exactly what they did. So I that's my case for Stefanski, and I don't know if it's right, but that's my
yeah, take. No, when I look at all three of those situations, though, I for me as a player, I'm looking at that and saying I'm happy if any of those three guys win it. I mean, you could obviously have a team like Buffalo, like Joshua here in the comments here, Coach Heppel. I mean, you could have, because of the record there. I mean, you could have Harbaugh in Baltimore. You could have Shanahan in San Francisco. So, I mean, because typically the Coach of the Year has always typically gone to the team with the best record at the end of the year too. It's kind of like the MVP award. It always goes to the quarterback of the best team. And so it's one of those things that you never know where it's truly going. But no, I mean, I think this year you have a lot of compelling stories for guys who could be Coach of the Year that do deserve it. And if it's any of those three names that we just said, I'm perfectly fine if any of those three guys win it. And at the end of the day, if Kyle Shanahan wins it or if John Harbaugh wins it, I'm fine with that too because of the jobs that they've done as well. But even just to kind of toot DeMeco Ryans' horn, I mean, they finished 10-7 and had to fight back in a division towards the end of the year after losing their quarterback for 2 weeks. So I believe they lost both of those games. So with CJ Stroud, they probably would have won those games. They're a 12-win team, or at least been in those games. So Yeah, I mean, and just to turn around from having the number 2 and number 4, number 2 and number 3 overall picks, to then being in the postseason, winning the division, regardless of the Jacksonville collapse, I think say a great turnaround. But then again, Detroit did that too, and Dan Campbell's probably even more so a media darling. So I can see that.
Yeah. Yeah. Shout out to Joshua for joining in again with us real quick. Chris just joined us as well, adding a third man here to the panel. The Buffalo Bills, number 2 seed, fantastic run. They went 6-1 after firing Ken Dorsey. I just wanted to throw that out there because a lot of people were wondering if that was the correct move. Clearly it was as well. Chris, we were just talking a little bit about Black Monday, everything that happened. I don't know how much you heard while you were off air. Your coach of the year, and just give me a little bit of a rundown on your thoughts being a Patriots fan about what you feel like should happen with Belichick as well in that situation.
Yeah, my coach of the year, John Harbaugh. I think he did a great job with Lamar this year, kind of elevating him to the next level. If I could give it to Todd Monken, I would. But, offensive coordinators don't get coach of the year. But I think overall, I think the Ravens offense has improved drastically. It's really great to see their run game, kick back to where it used to be. But, in terms of my team, obviously I think Belichick is, headed out. Unfortunately, we need to move on. I've said this all season. I think it's time, man. I mean, I know Michael Rabel is a big topical conversation. I think another name, Eric Bieniemy. I would love EB. I would welcome him with open arms here. Other than that, honestly, there's no other candidate. I don't want Ben Johnson. And that might sound rude. I'm good off that Ben Johnson, but I would be Mike Rabel, Gerard Mayo, or EB. Those are my 3. Other than that,
that's fine. That's fine. I want Ben Johnson, so I want him in Washington.
Ben Johnson.
If it's not Eric Bieniemy, I want Ben Johnson in Washington. Those are my top 2 candidates. And it's not a knock on Jim Harbaugh. It's just I feel like that's just a name. I just feel like you're just going out to get a name. Yeah, sure, he made a Super Bowl and he's been in the league before and whatnot. I feel like you're buying a name in that situation because it's a name that's tied and had success with Michigan. I don't know if maybe I'm just understating that, or I don't know what your thoughts are on Jim Harbaugh coming back to the NFL or whatever. But for me, I just kind of feel like it's just a name, like it's a flash in the pan name, and whatnot.
Yeah, Jim, I think stays in Michigan. Now, obviously, that's another tight connection that we have there because obviously Tom trains all of the quarterbacks at Michigan, and I know a good number of those. I haven't met Jim myself, but I do know a lot of the quarterbacks on that roster. But no, I think Jim stays in Michigan. He seems to be extremely happy there. He really loves everything that Michigan is. He is a Michigan guy, so I think he stays there. But obviously, if these recruiting violations and things like that truly do end his job or force Michigan's hand with the different things going on here, obviously he's going to take interviews if teams want to interview him. And the biggest thing is just finding the situation for him that I think would be ready-made. I think for that, it's Vegas. If Vegas doesn't want to go the route hiring their interim guy who's done an amazing, terrific job there. And then obviously the Chargers in LA. I think those would be the 2 landing spots for Harbaugh if he did move on. And then obviously you look at Vegas or even LA. Like LA's obviously got Herbert, but there's questions on if they want to move on from Herbert at some point to just completely reset everything. JJ McCarthy would be available in the draft. Same thing with Vegas. Vegas, I think, likes O'Connell. But O'Connell's not necessarily a guy that I think you can build a franchise around. I think he's a capable starter and has proven that, but is not a guy that you can say yet is a franchise guy. And so you maybe bring in J.J. McCarthy and run your system and stuff there, kind of like how Chip Kelly tried to do with guys that he had in college, like the Marcus Mariotas and things like that. But no, overall, though, I think Jim stays at Michigan unless there's outside forces that force him to leave.
I didn't even bring up the Las Vegas situation, and primarily the main reason why I said about Washington with Jim Harbaugh was because his brother's in Baltimore.
Yeah,
both teams are in Maryland, and with as close as those two brothers are, it would be very appealing, I'm sure.
Oh, of
And
course.
and without a GM there right now, I'm pretty positive that they would probably kind of give Jim a little bit of full control over the roster or have a major input. Speaking
Mhm.
of which, uh, Washington did hire former Golden State Warriors executive Bob Myers, who
Yep.
is working with former Minnesota Vikings GM Chris Spielman.
Yep.
We hired them both to kind of come onto this advisory board. They're not giving them
Mhm.
official titles yet. Um, but as a Washington fan, I'm excited about this, and I really hope that Bob Myers translates, because he has gone on record and said when he was back at Golden State that he wanted to get into other sports. So fingers crossed there. The most miserable looking job appears to be Carolina.
Yes.
Who is going to want to take that? Who is even going to want to look at that franchise and go, I want to go work for David Tepper? Because at this point in time, I don't think that there's a person on this planet that is involved with football. They could offer it to me. I'd probably take it just for the money, but I like do I really want to deal with David Tepper? That's the question. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't make
Yeah.
sense to me.
Yeah, no, Carolina is a job that I think everybody does not want, but obviously somebody's going to have to take it. So I don't know who's going to be the unfortunate soul that takes that, but it's going to take a heck of a person to be able to go in and right that ship, especially with the ownership that they have and the situation that they do have in Carolina. Obviously, I'm a little more high on Bryce Young than what like Chris is, for example. But obviously, I think I've been on record multiple times saying that he still has a lot to prove. It's just it all starts with getting him protection, because when he has had protection, he has at least shown flashes that he can do something. So no, it's a hard situation to get into. I would much rather be in Atlanta or Tennessee or LA or Vegas or Washington or even New England for that matter than Carolina. But somebody's going to have to take the job, and I don't know really who would. But then again, that could maybe be a Bieniemy landing spot, because I seem to think that Washington is going to let Bieniemy go. I think they're just going to say sayonara with the whole staff, and it is like everybody on Ben Johnson or a Jim Harbaugh or whatever. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. I think Carolina's a hard little task here.
The only thing that I don't want to see, the two spots, Washington and Carolina, even though they're two opposite ends of the spectrum, Washington seems to be the most appealing, Carolina seems to be the least appealing. The one thing that I do want to say for both those situations is I really hope they don't hire a defensive guy as a head coach.
Yeah.
Not because I don't have faith that some of these guys are deserving. It's just that defensive coordinators that become head coaches generally don't have a fantastic track record in the NFL.
Yes.
But with that being said, it's also the young quarterbacks. If you look at Sam Howell's tape, now this might be where a knock on Eric Bieniemy comes from, because the offense struggled in the second half of the season. But if you take a look at Sam Howell's tape, when he had time, and I know that it's the typical thing for a lot of quarterbacks, he looked really, really good. And Bryce Young, same situation, had moments where he flashed. They were the two most sacked quarterbacks in the NFL this year. And if I'm going into a situation where I'm looking for a head coach and looking for a way to score points, your defense struggled, sure, but a defensive coordinator, I feel like, makes a bigger impact on the overall unit than an offensive coordinator necessarily does without having an offensive-minded head coach there to assist, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So I look at both those situations, and I think of a guy like Ben Johnson, what he's done with Jared Goff, with Dan Campbell being a hard-nosed guy overall for that team. Like, it's a perfect situation, perfect marriage, right? So I look at a guy like Ben Johnson, like, okay, Ben Johnson comes over. Who does Ben bring that can mold a guy like Sam Howell or a guy like Bryce Young and get the protection around him, right? And get the help around him. You know what I mean? Like, that would be the only thing that I would not want to see specifically with those two teams, just because of the young quarterback that's in place. Even if you don't believe Howell is the guy, you're still going to have a young quarterback in Washington.
Yes. Yeah, and that's the thing where obviously I think the defensive-minded head coaches, I think this is where I think a lot of them have gone awry, is they fail to hire the correct offensive staff to support the quarterback that they have. And I think a great example of someone who's done it the right way is what D'Amico Ryans has done in Houston.
Yes.
I think they've done the right thing. Is yes, D'Amico Ryans is a defensive guy, and this will be the same thing if we want to talk about New England. If they go Vrabel, if they go Gerard Mayo, or even stay with Belichick, they need to get the offensive staff correct. They need to get a guy who isn't necessarily a quarterback whisperer, but is someone who is a higher level offensive mind and maybe has played the position at a high level and things like that, to be able to say, okay, I know where you're at. I know why you're processing things too fast. Let's dumb this down a little bit so you can process the thing slower and make the game start moving slower. But you see a lot of these defensive staffs that I think, and I've been in situations where I played for head coaches that are defensive guys. The mindset of a lot of those defensive guys, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's just obviously it's to each your own. But defensive guys, the way they try to coach offense is by saying, this is what was run against me, and this is how I stop it. So because I want to stop it this way, you need to do it this way to beat me. And in some cases that works. But in the way of offensive football and the way of offensive styles now, that type of coaching probably doesn't necessarily relate to the offensive players as much as maybe it did in the past. And so that's why I think you truly have to get the offensive staff right to say, okay, we're going to sit down. We're going to tell you the reasons why we do this, this, and this. We're going to try to slow the game down to you by getting the ball to playmakers in open space and allow, like what San Francisco's doing. The reason why Brock Purdy's a system quarterback is because it doesn't seem like his job's very hard, because it seems as if everything's ready-made, handed to him. You just got to get the ball into this window or that window. And so they surrounded Brock Purdy and are continuing to help him grow into this role that I think he's done an amazing job with. So in a guy like Sam Howell or Will Levis in Tennessee or Bryce Young in Carolina, heck, even if Atlanta decides they want to keep Desmond Ridder, it's situations, or New England with a young guy, Washington with another young guy, whatever, they need to be able to get offensive staff around them, whether that's the head coach as a supplement to it or the defensive head coach with offensive supplements that truly help develop and move forward this quarterback from a true offensive standpoint instead of just hiring a defensive guy to coach offense.
Yeah, and I do want to throw in one more name into the Washington hat that I would be happy to see, and that's Bobby Slowick. The offensive coordinator down there in Houston too. I just don't know if he's necessarily fully ready at this point, but sometimes you have to take that leap. It worked for the Rams.
It did.
Right? It's working for Cleveland per se, even though I think Stefanski was on a lot more people's radars at that point in time because he had a couple more years to prove it. But even when John Harbaugh got hired in Baltimore, you know, he was just a special teams coordinator at the time. So they took that.
I will say with Slowick, though, it does feel like a situation. Now, I don't know Slowick. I've never had any connection to Slowick. But I will say it does seem like he's a type of guy that if he's got something good, he doesn't want to leave it. So, I mean, you're still so young and can build this thing with CJ Stroud and with these core of young receivers.
Yeah, of course.
So, and you've got a chance to go prove something in the postseason when I didn't expect him to be in the postseason year one. So, I mean, you can have a 1 or 2 year, maybe even 3 year run at this thing. And then from that point, go say, okay, I've definitely proven myself. It's time to go. Like I think Bieniemy has basically done. And then Bieniemy, unfortunately, just had to make a lateral move to try to get the promotion, and I don't think that's working out for him, unfortunately.
Yeah, and it's an unfortunate situation. Washington was always going to be a tough situation. It started off looking really good. We lost some tough games at the beginning of the year, and I just don't think that once the middle to the end of the year hit, I think that the lack of depth and a lot of the injuries that we had just didn't correlate. The defense was obviously the biggest problem all year for us anyways. I mean, we were ranked, I think, like 31st in the league, and the offensive line was ranked like 29th. So you're not going to win games with that, regardless of who was back there. I mean, even if CJ Stroud had been back there, I don't think it would have been pretty. You know what I mean? So it's it's like who can you really blame in that situation? Ron Rivera is gone, so you can blame Ron Rivera, sure, but it may have been him. He may have been the problem. Or, very possibly he had a bunch of other things that were happening. So who knows?
Well, I think if you're Kansas City and Bieniemy doesn't get a head coaching job, you'd love to have him back.
Yeah. And there's still I still think there's an outside chance that Bieniemy can return to Washington in some capacity. I don't know what capacity that will be, but I think that there is a possibility he could still be back on the offensive side of the ball, and if he can find a right relationship, if it's somebody that can work. But Kansas City definitely is a struggling offense without him, and Matt Nagy is, I think, showing that he needs to step away and figure something out.
He needs to go on the whole McCarthy sabbatical.
The key, the McCarthy sabbatical, I love it. So right now, there was a couple things that happened this past weekend that you wanted to talk about. One of the biggest things is obviously the Tampa Bay Buccaneers situation that happened with Atlanta, and the end of the game where New Orleans. Sorry, New Orleans. I was thinking Jameis Winston and went to Tampa Bay for some reason.
Yeah.
But New Orleans, according to Jameis Winston, the team as a whole made the call to get Jamal Williams the touchdown at the end of the game. Arthur Smith was pissed off. Dennis Allen had no clue what the hell happened and why that play was ran. Winston, to his credit, I think, made the right call and then has said everything right since then. His apology to Dennis Allen, I believe, was sincere. I think that he actually legitimately wanted to say, hey, coach, I'm sorry I did that, but this was a team decision because of what Jamal means to this team, and team morale is something that we need, et cetera, et cetera. I personally don't have an issue with it because to me, it's football. Stop them. I don't have anything to do with this knee situation. Like, I get it. It's sportsmanship, et cetera, but if that interception had been returned for a touchdown, are you still that pissed off? Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, my opinion about it, if it was like on the 40-yard line and you ran like a fake knee or a trick play to try to score a touchdown, a little bit different of a story, but you're on the 1-yard line, you only have to stop it for one play or whatever. Just do it. Like, I don't know what your thoughts are. I'm an ex-player, and I wouldn't have taken that disrespectfully, but I know you are a current player, and it may be a different story. I don't know.
No, for me, it's the exact same thing. I have no problem with it at all. I think Jameis Winston, although he's a weird human being, he is a upstanding individual, and I think it's great. And I don't think it's a loser's mentality, like I think some people have said, that he was willing to go do that, and the team was willing to go do that to give Jamal that touchdown. That obviously he had 17 the year before, something like that, and then he moves on from Detroit, and now he's got the one solely because of this decision. I think it's great as a team morale thing to do that. I'm 100% behind that. The angle more that I was going to take from this is obviously. The Neal situation is still not a good look because then what is the defense doing? The defense is surrendering the play. So if you go then run basically like a fullback draw, that could possibly get somebody hurt. And I'm not saying that that's what you need to do, whatever, or if that's a reason for Arthur Smith to be pissed off. It's not. Like, at the end of the day, if that pick six was returned, it still would have been the same score. But right. It's just one of those things that it's like, okay, if you're going to do that, like, it's first down and it's first and goal from the 1-yard line. Jameis, call a different formation and actually show the defense you're not surrendering. And then maybe you don't get the same backlash. Now, obviously, you probably still get backlash for quote unquote running up the score. But no, it's just one of those things that I think James made the right decision to help a teammate out because you never know. There was probably financials in with that too. For every touchdown he scored, it might have been $25K or something. So right. It's just one of those things that I'm 100% cool with that. It's just maybe the way in which they did it needed to change a little bit.
That's fair.
But at the end of the day, it's football. You got to be able to stop everything regardless. And heck, it's the Falcons Saints, one of, in my opinion, one of the more intense rivalries in all the NFL. And so you're going to see stuff like this happen. It's bragging rights until next September. Like, stop them. Like, Atlanta's defense is much more improved this year. Like, I know you're giving up, but stop them. So it's just one of those things. I have no problem with it at all. But Arthur Smith shouldn't have been as hot as he was. But I think he was also hot because he already knew he was fired by halftime.
Maybe Dennis Allen should reach out to Arthur Smith and hire him as a tight end coach.
We'll see. And that's the other thing I was going to take from this, too, that I just completely went over my head. The fact that this did happen, though, this does beg the question, is Dennis Allen fired? Because in a way, if he has no clue what's going on and the players did this, and although it's for a good reason, in a way, he's lost the locker room, too.
Well, so not to cut you off, but real quick, I believe I read that the reports are that he's going to retain his job in New Orleans.
Mm-hmm.
And from what I understand, the management side of it has heard the players in the organization and realized that it was more of them just kind of going rogue away from the head coach than it really was necessarily Dennis Allen losing the locker room.
Gotcha.
So from what I've been reading and seeing, I mean, granted, you can't trust everything you read and see, obviously. It just sounds like that the organization's understanding of where it came from, Dennis Allen, I guess, laid into the players. I guess from what I understand, he laid into them. Jameis Winston was very adamant that everybody got cussed out. But at the end of that game, I think that the Saints, from a team standpoint, for the player side of things, made a correct call. But I agree with you on a very fair point that it probably should have been a different formation and done a little bit differently, for sure. What was the other thing you wanted to talk about? There was another thing that happened.
Well, we got Aaron Rodgers' comments and the whole Jets situation.
Oh, I don't even want to get involved. I could go on a giant rant about Aaron Rodgers forever. I mean, he wants to come back, fine, cool, whatever. You're going to be 41 with coming off an Achilles injury. You want to play, cool. All the other outside noise, like I am a very adamant believer that Aaron Rodgers makes the NFL better when he's on the field. When he opens his mouth, he makes the NFL worse, though. He needs to go away. I think he's very much a spotlight hogger. I think he loves the spotlight being on him. And then he just kind of like, just, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like a big giant joke for him. And like, oh God, I was just kidding, to get a sense of humor. And it's like, but you're not doing it in a way that makes anybody believe it's a joke. You're not doing it in a manner of any which way, shape, or form that anybody cares to listen to anything that you have to say outside of maybe football related. I think he's a very smart guy as far as like football is concerned, very smart IQ. I think that he went awry somewhere, and I don't know if it was during that lockdown when a lot of people kind of went crazy, and he just kind of
came out of it.
Yeah, he never came, like, went down a rabbit hole and never came out of it, which is cool. Live your life that way, but on a personal level, away from football for a second, the comments he made on Pat McAfee's show were extremely dangerous and reckless. And I have zero, I have zero, I don't even know what I don't blame Jimmy Kimmel for responding the way he did, because Kimmel came right out and said that my family's been receiving death threats. And that is something that, yes, Aaron Rodgers can't control, but when you say it on a platform that's that big, and you have and I'm gonna call these people crazy. Anybody who threatens someone else's family are crazy, and you have the crazies out there that are listening to a giant platform like that. You have to bear responsibility for what you say.
Exactly.
And I know this is a little bit off of football right now. It's just, I feel that it's still something that is important to say, because it's one of those things that we, even us here, at Shady Sports Network, even though this isn't a multi-billion-dollar company, we still have a responsibility to make sure that we are saying things in a manner that isn't going to put other people in harm's way.
Yep.
And as somebody who's trying to take this as professionally as possible to make something out of it, I think Aaron is too careless in that regard. And I don't ever want to see anybody necessarily lose a source of income or whatever it is that may be, but I do not think Aaron should be moving forward on the program. Apparently, ESPN's going to let him finish out the year. I just don't know what's going to happen from that standpoint. That's just my piece. We don't have to talk about it further.
Oh yeah,
a lot, but
and see, I wasn't even going into Jimmy Kimmel stuff. I was just more talking about cutting the BS.
No, I know. I just felt like from where we are as what we're doing, especially with an NFL show and what we talk about, a lot of it correlates, and I just felt it was important to say it and put it out there that they were dangerous and reckless, and hopefully it's over with and done, and Aaron doesn't say anything stupid like that. I just don't feel like that's going to be the case.
He's Aaron Rodgers. Something stupid's going to come out of his mouth.
On the other side of things, you can go ahead and say what you wanted about him, because I just wanted to say that piece. That's all.
Well, I mean, and I can kind of tie this in too. I mean, I think Aaron Rodgers, in at least his flush the BS and get any distraction outside of that locker room that isn't focused on winning, blah, blah, blah. I think he's 100% right in everything that he's saying, because the Jets truly need that. Yes. But then again, you also need to then bring it back to what you were saying about his other comments. You need to look right in the mirror.
Yep.
And so I think that's where I think the whole Jets organization, I think what he's saying is 100% right. I do think he's maybe more focused on football maybe now than what he was maybe a couple weeks ago, a couple months ago. But at the same time, he does need to look himself in the mirror and keep himself in check if he's going to say those same things. So you got to be a leader, not necessarily through your words, but through your actions too. And so, I mean, whenever you point, there's four fingers looking back at you.
No doubt.
So, that's my 2 cents. But if the Jets are going to take that step forward, they do need to flush the BS. They do need to flush the distractions. And that means Aaron Rodgers needs to make some changes himself. That needs to happen.
Yep. And on that note, yes, that's part of what I was going on about is that the distractions, everything else that's happening, because if you're making the news for the wrong reasons, are you truly doing that whole cut the BS thing and whatnot? So maybe being slapped in the face with a lawsuit changes things for him. I don't know, but we'll see. I do hope, though, that we do see him on a field, just because, even though I may not like him, I don't even like him as a quarterback, but I mean, just because I don't like him, he does make the NFL better. I won't deny his greatness. And I like I said, I don't ever wish people to fail. I just don't like Aaron Rodgers, so therefore, for me, it's like, if you do happen to fail, like whatever, whatever for me. Speaking of failing, the Indianapolis Colts made an extremely weird decision this weekend. They, with the game on the line, make a brilliant play call, but put their fourth string running back out there to make the play. Now, Gardner Minshew did not throw the ball in the greatest location. It should have been a much easier throw. And maybe Minshew rushed it a little bit, but the ball still hits you in the hands.
Yeah.
And I know that if AC was here, he would be like, well, players still have to make the plays. But I look back at the coach in this situation here, because your best player you took off the field when he was on the field the down before that in Jonathan Taylor. What are your thoughts on this? Because I truly feel like the Colts, because they ran that play, deserve to lose that game.
It for me, this is kind of multifaceted, because I love the play call. I'm even okay with personnel that's out there, unlike what some people may think. I mean, because in a way that creates some type of, okay, what are they going to do? Like, the fourth string running backs out on the field, like, can they really run this, or like what are they going to do? And so, I mean, you look at it, and I think Tyler Goodson this season, when he has played, has actually been a fairly decent pass blocker. And so obviously I think everybody knew at that point they were going to pass. But you don't expect him to run out into the flat. From a quarterback's perspective, Gardner Minshew definitely rushed the throw. He kind of fell back and didn't necessarily allow himself to truly put everything into the ball. And then he's kind of pulling himself this way too with the shoulders. So the ball's going to end up a little behind him. But then obviously Tyler Goodson hits him in the hands. It's a play that 9 times out of 10, when you're an NFL caliber player, you still make that play. And so obviously he holds himself to a very high standard because he knows in the work that he puts in that 9 times out of 10, he's making that play, or heck, even 10 times out of 10 in a practice scenario, he's probably making that play. So I'm more than happy with him being frustrated, being disappointed in himself because of the level and the standard he holds himself to. And I think that's going to make him a better football player because of it. And I think if he's given that opportunity again, he'll probably come through for the Colts. But yes, it is tough to say that Zach Moss or Jonathan Taylor aren't on the field in that. If I were to change anything, maybe you make it a 2-back set where Taylor's in with them as kind of more window dressing. But I still am okay with the play call of doing that. I just look at it as, I mean, you got to trust your playmakers, and if you're on the roster, you can be called at any point. And for whatever reason, the coach felt like that was, or at least that play design, whether it was meant for Goodson or not, was the best play to call. And Goodson had the chance at the first down. And if it's a better thrown ball, if it doesn't ricochet off the hands in a certain way, like we're probably talking about a different story, and maybe Indy actually comes back and wins that game. But I mean, good play call, good read, just a very unfortunate drop. And there's different reasons on why that could have either went good or went bad for him. But I don't think anybody that's going and saying that Tyler Goodson should be cut from the NFL and go play football or all this other, or sending them death threats like we just talked about. No, you're stupid. Go home, go somewhere else. No, you have no reason to even be a fan of football if that's what you're going to watch football for. Yeah. Let me get off my soapbox. But no, Jonathan, anyone that wants to then go discuss, like, should Zach Moss or Jonathan Taylor have been on the field, different personnel, it's all fine. You're analyzing football at that point. So I'm more okay with it than maybe others. I think there's, again, kind of similar to this Atlanta, New Orleans situation. You could have maybe put a different formation on the field, to more window dressing, things like that. But at the end of the day, I'm okay with the call. I don't remember exactly what the receivers were running on the routes. But in reality, the play probably wasn't made for Tyler Goodson, obviously knowing he is a hot if they do blitz. So he could be in the position to make a play. But in that case, if he's a hot, like in a way he was because of the blitz, you throw it to him, better thrown ball, and you're not even worrying about it. So it's just one of those things that good play call, good decision, bad throw. Gardner Minshew maybe needs to take a little more credit for it than what he probably has from the public. I think obviously behind closed doors, he's taking credit for it, whatever. But
I want to specify that I don't think Tyler Goodson is a bad player. I don't think Tyler Goodson has put the work in. I don't think Tyler Goodson is to blame for all of it. Like, I don't, because
of course, obviously you just look at, Jonathan Taylor is one of the best running backs in the NFL. Well, Zach Moss is a very explosive runner.
Right. It goes back to
the
Super Bowl with Seattle and New England. Like, Marshawn Lynch is averaging over 5 yards a carry. And you're down there at the 2-yard line, and you run a slant to Ricardo Lockett, your 4th wide receiver. You know what I mean? Like, it kind of goes back to that as far as a play call is concerned. Now, Marshawn Lynch was on the field. You just split him out wide. Like, nobody thinks you're throwing to Marshawn Lynch, right? You're not even lining him up in that situation. With this Colts situation, it's like the Lakers taking LeBron off the court and putting on some guy that's at the back of the bench because you never, quote unquote, saw it coming, right? But you increase your chance of your risks of it failing. And I think that's where my biggest issue is. It's not because Tyler Goodson, I think, is not an NFL caliber player. It's because I think Tyler Goodson also didn't have a single touch in that game prior to. Like, that was the first touch that he had. He's coming off the sidelines cold. There's no, I mean, he may have played special teams, but what does that really mean in the sense of the offense and across the board? So yes, Gardner Minshew could have made a better throw. I think anybody with half a brain cell that knows football can see that throw could have been easily better. But it still hits you in the hands. And as a receiver, whether it's running back, tight end, or wide receiver, it's a play you have to make, especially in that crucial situation at that moment in time. I think it was a great play call. I think it was a bonehead decision by the coach, though. I think it was the wrong personnel group, in the sense of, the running back specifically in that situation. But I'm sure, Coach Steichen will, think about that all offseason as the Colts sit at home and watch Houston go on to play Cleveland next week as well. Before we get into predictions, we were talking about Gardner Minshew, so let's segue into everybody's favorite, what segment? That's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah.
That you don't know about.
There's a lot of things to take into account when you're talking about being viewed as a top 5 quarterback. It's not a laundry list. This is a list that, it has to be taken very seriously.
Well, Week 18 is come and gone in the 2023, now 2024 NFL season. 2023-2024 NFL season. We're not in 24 yet. But no, I mean, you had a bunch of potential playoff matchups, a lot of high stakes, and what quarterbacks ended up coming to play in a bunch of backup games too. Maybe some of these backups made this list. Who knows? But let's get into my honorable mentions for Week 18. So my honorable mention number 1 is Carson Wentz. Honorable mention number 2, Mason Rudolph. And honorable mention number 3, Kyler Murray. So those are 3 guys that don't make my top list. And then I'll even throw Aiden O'Connell in there as well, because I think Aiden O'Connell played fairly well. But anyway, let's get into my top 5 list for Week 18. Starting out at number 5, Jordan Love. Jordan Love had a 128.6 QBR, 27 of 32 for 316 yards and 2 touchdowns. Jordan Love continues to soak up what Green Bay's doing in how they develop quarterbacks. And I say this every single week he's on my top 5 list. But the Favre and Rodgers type mannerisms of him being able to have the ability to fit the ball in tight windows while falling back or contorting his body in a different way, it's very impressive. And some of the throws that he makes are some of the most impressive throws I see week in, week out. Love came through whenever his number was called upon, and the Packers asked him to make plays. Now, obviously, the run game was working for him too, but Love truly did make some plays for Green Bay in that win that they had to have against Chicago to go ahead and move on to the postseason. He made big plays when he was called upon, and he moves on to the postseason. So great Week 18 performance for Jordan Love, and that's why he's number 5 on my list. Moving on to number 4, Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott had 124.4 QBR, 31 of 36 for 279 yards, 4 touchdowns and the interception. Dak Prescott this week was a red zone or a score zone maestro. He directed traffic brilliantly against the Commanders. I know it is the Commanders, but he still directed traffic brilliantly against them. The early tip pass interception hurt the QBR, obviously, and hurt the stat line. But I think Dak still played one of his best weeks of football all year. After the interception was out, it was a tip pass interception. You can't really blame those on those, especially if it's in the area of the receiver. But that was more of a tip pass from the defensive line and then picked off. So, but he still played a very free-flowing, crisp game heading into the postseason. And obviously, Dallas Cowboys fans, while I'm here in Dallas-Fort Worth, have a lot of high expectations for this Cowboys team. They're going to need to rely on him and CeeDee Lamb this postseason. And so he's going to need to continue to play like this if the Cowboys want to hold up another championship ring or hold up a Super Bowl Lombardi trophy and bring another championship to Dallas. Moving on to number 3, Jared Goff. Jared Goff had 124.5 QBR, 23 of 32 for 320 yards and 2 touchdowns. Goff came out and attacked the Vikings defense early with 2 amazing deep shots in the early part of the game to open up that run and play action game, which they're so good at anyway. And when the game needed to be put away, he was able to find Amon-Ra St. Brown in a soft Viking zone coverage and ripped the heart out of the Minnesota Vikings and ripped the heart out of me and the Vikings' small miniature postseason hopes. So, but Jared Goff continues to be amazing. I think this matchup between the Rams is probably going to be one of the better postseason games we see this week. I'm extremely excited because of the narrative of both Goff versus Stafford. But no, Jared Goff's going to have to continue to play like this, if not maybe do a little more in the air than what he did falling at my number 3 guy this week to move them on against this Rams team that is getting kind of hot. But moving on to number 2 for Week 18, number 2, C.J. Stroud. C.J. Stroud had 134.1 QBR, 20 of 26 for 254 yards and 2 touchdowns. CJ's biggest plays were on the most crucial downs, the 3rd downs and 4th downs. He hung in the pocket multiple times, took shots, he reset his feet and delivered strikes on 3rd downs. He made plays with his legs when needed, and he consistently pushed the ball downfield on early downs too, understanding downs and distances and when you can take shots. He did an amazing job doing that, and a great performance out of Stroud ahead of a tough matchup against a very tough Browns defense this postseason. I think if CJ Stroud brings it like this, Cleveland might be on quote unquote upset watch. But I do think Cleveland might have the upper hand. But if CJ Stroud plays like this, you never know what can happen. But then moving on to my number 1 quarterback for Week 18, everybody in the Facebook chat and our little show probably predicted it. You definitely predicted it because nobody ended up topping it. But number 1, Derek Carr. Derek Carr had a 145.5 QBR, 22 of 28 for 264 yards and 4 touchdowns. Didn't have any interceptions at all. Derek Carr called head top multiple times this week. Took advantage of the Falcons playing man-to-man coverage on 3rd down consistently. Was able to take shots, and Derek Carr is one of the best deep ball throwers in the NFL. And he made those shots count. I mean, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Well, Derek Carr took shot after shot after shot, and every single one of them seemed to be landing on this much improved Falcons defense. But Derek Carr still made plays. The Saints are not in the postseason, even though they went ahead and dominated Atlanta like that. So I'm happy that they're not in the postseason. But Derek Carr in that performance definitely deserves the number 1 quarterback of Week 18. So if you like this list, or you want to add guys to it, you want to comment, say that I'm terrible, I'm stupid, whatever, and I miss so-and-so, go ahead and leave that in the comments, and we'll go debate it. I know a couple people have commented before and said that I suck or that this list is terrible, but then you never give me the reason why. So let's actually go debate it. Let's talk about it in the comment section. Give me your list, and I'll give you the reason why my guys are there, or you can give me the reason why your guys need to be in that too. So, but anyway, go leave a comment, go leave a like on this stream or the video whenever you go back and watch it. But we got a postseason coming up. We'll probably still have quarterback performances there. Maybe I'll even do my top 3 because there's less teams. And then here coming towards the end of the year, obviously I'll put together my top 5 quarterbacks of the entire 2023 season using my rankings and where they fell weeks 1 through 18. So make sure you stay tuned for that. But with that being said, that's quarterback list for Week 18.
Welcome Curtis, but before we get to you real quick on what we're going to do here, because I'm going to jump into some playoff predictions. We're going to run through that here in a second. I have a question to ask you, Justin.
Yeah.
First and foremost, before I do this, it's going to be a segue. The Miami Heat and Eric Spoelstra have agreed to a 8-year, $120 million extension. Just for you NBA fans out there, Miami Heat fans.
I saw that while I was doing this.
Yeah, but I do. You say you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. I don't feel like that's accurate. I get the reasoning behind it, but it's really not an accurate saying at all.
It's true. But then again, you go back to the whole Yogi Berra saying too about baseball. It's like, was it like 80% mental and 100% physical, or something like that?
John Madden's little 20% physical.
It's one of those sayings that doesn't make sense, but it's coined, and it makes sense now that it's always coined, and it's just a normal saying now. So, hey, you still got to throw the ball up there to go bring those shots down. So, hey, you do, in a way, theoretically, miss 100% of the shots you don't take because you're too afraid to put it up.
But if you don't take the shot, though, you can't miss it. Anyways.
Well,
I mean, is water wet?
I know water makes things wet.
Yeah, water itself is not wet. Welcome, Curtis. I know that you said that you were.
Was that dress blue or was it black? Since we're talking about those things.
Oh no, God no! That don't get on that. That's an optical illusion of some sort. I don't know. Anyways, Curtis, welcome to the show. That's now the third time I think I've said that. So maybe I'll say it one more time. Who knows? Let's jump in to our little postseason predictions of sorts. Curtis, I'm sure you've been listening or trying to catch as you can. Family life gets in the way. I get that. I want to start in the AFC, and I want to start with an intriguing matchup, but a matchup that I'm not sure a lot of people are giving the kind of time to because of the two teams that are involved. And Curtis, I'll start with you because one of them involves an AFC East team, and that's Buffalo and Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh, obviously, Mason Rudolph has looked fairly well here coming down the stretch. Pittsburgh as a whole kind of, I don't want to say eked into the playoffs, but they really kind of were just a team that was there and had some things fall the right way. And Buffalo's been 6-1 and probably one of the hottest teams in the league. I think they've won 5 straight to get into the playoffs as a 2 seed. What's your take on this game, and what's your prediction for this game as well?
Well, I don't want to discredit the Steelers because obviously they did what they had to do to get there. However, not having TJ Watt is definitely going to hurt them. I understand that that's the heart and soul of that team. I don't know if Fitzpatrick is still in or not either, but Mason Rudolph's been playing amazing. Every opportunity he's had to play, he's played well. Deontay Johnson has played well. Pickens has played well, even though he's had his struggles, and obviously Najee Harris played well in that last game of the season. And he's actually, since they changed the offensive coordinator, whoever they're having call plays for them, you've seen a definite change in their offense and the dynamic of their offense. But like you said, the Buffalo Bills are the hottest team. If you look at like the Bills and the Miami Dolphins are almost like on the opposite ends of the spectrum. Like Miami kind of just like fell apart towards the end, and the Bills were at like almost a do or die, junction where they had, if they lost, they could have just packed it in. And I think that the Bills are going to win against the Steelers. And I just don't want to say they're going to just completely dominate them, because the Steelers play tough and they're coached well and they execute well. And like I said, everything I had to say about their players, I just don't think that they have what it takes to win against Josh Allen in that offense, especially not having their best player on that. I mean, TJ Watt's the best player on the entire team by far. So, you know what I mean? Not having him that's just going to kill them. I think, and they have other good defenders. I just don't think that they have what it takes in a matchup with a team like the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, Justin, what's your take on this? Are you in the same boat? Do you think Pittsburgh can make this game kind of ugly and maybe eke it out, or is this just going to be a situation where Buffalo is just too much for them?
Yeah, it's hard with the defensive injuries that Pittsburgh does have. And I think Minkah, last time I checked, was going to be a game-time decision, which obviously in the postseason, Minkah is going to play. So, but even having Minkah at 70% is not the Minkah Fitzpatrick that you need to have on the field in postseason. TJ Watt not on the field in the postseason is detrimental to their defense. And so you see how physical this Bills team can be at times, especially with Josh Allen running the football. And then why am I forgetting his name now? James Cook being able to run my Georgia guy. But James Cook being able to run the football the way that he does too. I mean, they can be physical at times. But then just to add on to it, just to maybe toot the Bills' horn a little bit, the Bills, I mean, they're offensively, they're inconsistent. But I read a stat today that said this Bills offensive line is ranked 4th in pass block win rate this season. And obviously they're led by their left tackle, Dion Dawkins, who has a 93% pass block win rate. So even if TJ Watt was playing, you're probably matching up TJ Watt, Dion Dawkins, and that would have been a great matchup to watch because of the high pass block win rate versus TJ Watt being TJ Watt. But then not having TJ Watt, not saying that the other pass rushers that they have or their number one pass rusher at that point would be able to do anything against Dion Dawkins. But it's a whole lot harder to say that an offensive line that's one of the top 5 pass blocking win rate teams in football especially when postseason play is. I mean, it's hard to say that they can truly get pressure on Josh Allen. And even if they do, Josh Allen is still Josh Allen and able to be a physical runner and make plays happen, break out of sacks, things like that. And then just moving over to the Bills side completely, I mean, they're getting healthy, and we've already talked about how hot they're getting. Yeah, they've won 6 out of the last 7 games or 5 out of the last 6 or something like that to get into the postseason where they really didn't have any room for error. So they're getting hot as a team, but they're also getting healthy. They're getting Daquan Jones, one of their defensive tackles, back this week from injured reserve too. Obviously, he didn't play in Week 18 and hasn't played for a while, so you look at maybe some rust there. But getting that back in the interior might even help them out defensively too. So they're getting healthy and hot at the right time, and they're a team that I don't think people want to play. But then again, the Pittsburgh Steelers also play a very physical brand of football. They always find ways to win regardless of it. Mason Rudolph has played tremendous the last couple weeks and is not afraid to throw the ball deep, unlike a lot of the other quarterbacks that have played for Pittsburgh this year. So I think it's going to be a closer game than people think, because I think the Steelers will slow the game down. But I do think Buffalo still probably wins this by about 10 points.
Yeah, I think it's going to start off early. It's going to be close. There's 2 things that worry me about Buffalo in this game, though. Is the matchup, because Pittsburgh is a team that will make it ugly, and like you said, slow the game down. But the fact that they make it ugly, it starts usually in the 2 spots that hurt Buffalo last year in the playoffs, and that's the interior O-line and interior D-line. Obviously, getting Daquan Jones back is huge for them. But those were the 2 spots that Buffalo really struggled, and it cost them the playoffs. Mm-hmm. But they are getting healthy at this time. They went 6-1 after firing Ken Dorsey. They get into the playoffs at this point. At this moment, they are playing a Pittsburgh team that I think wasn't expecting to be here, so that makes them dangerous too, because they're not playing to lose anything at this moment in time. It's a cold weather game, which fits Pittsburgh as well. So it's not really an advantage anywhere. It's not like Miami traveling to Buffalo, like in the middle of January. So there's no real advantage for Buffalo there. So it's actually probably not a good draw for Buffalo. I just think that towards the end of the game, third to fourth quarter, I think Josh Allen does his thing, and I think Buffalo ends up pulling away a little bit. And I do want to plug real quick, Justin, before you say something. Mm-hmm. There's a fantastic video out there of Mike Greenberg talking. I think I mentioned this before. I don't know if anybody remembers or not, but he's talking about Josh Allen and everything that Josh Allen has done in a positive manner that people don't talk about, because everybody wants to talk about the interceptions. Everybody wants to talk about the missed throws. If you get a moment, try to go find that. I'm not sure what program it was. I know that he's still with ESPN, so I'm assuming it's probably with ESPN or something. But you could probably type in Mike Greenberg on Josh Allen and just listen to what he has to say, because it kind of puts into light how much this organization relies, maybe too much, on Josh Allen to succeed. And that may be a recipe for disaster in the playoffs for Buffalo. I just don't think it's this week.
Oh, of course. And that kind of piggybacks on what I was going to say anyway. Obviously, Josh Allen, was because we do talk about the interceptions. I've said multiple times Josh Allen's one of the few type of players that can throw interceptions, but is still a player that can then go back and recover from that. He has a tendency to throw the early game interception, or heck, even a third quarter interception, and then that team's always still around at the end. And so, obviously, because you have to say it, Josh Allen not turning over the football is still a big key in this game too. I mean, Pittsburgh with Minkah Fitzpatrick in there, with the secondary that they do have, if they force turnovers or first force turnovers early and then can slow the game down, that's the recipe for success. But obviously, I completely agree. I even if Josh Allen has one of those games where he turns the ball over 1 or 2 times, I still think this is a game that Buffalo, even though it might be close, Buffalo pulls away at the end. And then we can start talking about, do Buffalo truly rely too much on Josh Allen, which I do think they do, but he's Josh Allen. You can, in a way, get away with that. So that could be obviously recipe for disaster, but I don't think it's recipe for disaster in the wild card round.
Yeah. Curtis, you mentioned Miami, so we'll come to you here first. Their playoff game is against Kansas City. They have to travel into Kansas City. We know the atmosphere is always insane. It's colder in Kansas City than definitely it is in Miami. this Miami team struggled down the stretch, but this Miami team is still also a team that has only had one win against a winning record in 2 years. Not exactly a vote of confidence for this Miami team, but it is possible it's a Tyreek Hill revenge game. He's returning home. What are your thoughts on this game as well?
Man, I'd be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if Miami wins. I really wouldn't be surprised if Miami pulls it out. Just because of as bad as the Kansas City's played all year. And I know last week was a good game. Pacheco, came through, and even though they had they had Kelsey and Rice sit out, and they were game time decisions. Kansas City still played well. I just think that this is too close of a game, and I think that the way that they're matched up as a team, the way they're matched up, the offensive weapons that both teams have, obviously the Chiefs, I think, have a better defense. Not on paper. I think the Chiefs have a better defense eye test wise than what the Miami Dolphins have. I think that the Dolphins have enough firepower. Mostert will probably be healthy for the game. So my predictions, I think, and I hate to say it because I am a Patrick Mahomes fan, but I think that Miami Dolphins could probably win this game by less than a touchdown, in between 3 to 5 points, something like that. I think they could pull it out.
That's fair. Justin, he brings up a good point. The defense is really good, but this offense has not been the same for Kansas City. Are you on this possible upset? Now, mind you, Patrick Mahomes has never had an away playoff game. And it looks like there's a possibility it could happen if they do beat Miami. But do you think that this is a upset alert for Kansas City?
It's tough because, we talked about Miami just a minute ago. Miami, in a way, as in opposite of Buffalo, they're getting cold. They're not playing as good football as what they have earlier in the year. And then you still have to go into Kansas City, which is one of the loudest stadiums in all of football. It's going to be cold, especially with this Arctic blast that's coming here in the Midwest now. They're going to be playing in that. And I will say, from a quarterback's perspective, even though I think Tua has shut down the conversations of he has a weak arm and things like that, there is something to say about, in colder climates, you don't throw the ball as hard, you don't throw the ball as far. And so then the questions can start to arise. Can Tua truly push this ball downfield against Kansas City's defense that, even though they've played mostly backups this past week, their defense has been showing improvements. They have been playing well as opposed to their offense. And it's like their offense is going one direction, defense is going the other. Their defense seems to be peaking at the right time. And it's one of those things that I still think Miami has too much to lose in terms of offensive personnel. And then obviously you look at what Kansas City has and the trajectory of their offense. I would still lean Miami. But I do think, because of the weather, could potentially neutralize things. And because of this defense for Kansas City playing well, there is a chance that if they can force a turnover early, get to Tua early, we could have ourselves a game. Now, with that being said, you can't doubt Patrick Mahomes either come playoff time. But like I said, this Chiefs offense as a whole is a different offense than what we've seen. So I'm never going to doubt or bet against Patrick Mahomes, but I can at least bet against this offense. I'll still take Miami, but I think it's very close. I still think it's a field goal or a touchdown late or something that makes it like the 4 or 5 point or even a 3-point spread. I don't think it's going to be a very high scoring game at all. Miami's going to have to get to different climates if they want to start scoring more points.
I'm on the opposite end here than you two. I think Miami really struggles in this game. I think the cold weather, Tyreek is fine with it. But I think the cold weather is going to play a huge play into this game. Probably a bigger one than most people realize. The question is going to become, can Kansas City get any help from their wide receiver position? And primarily it's going to come from Rashee Rice. Yeah. If they can get any type of somewhat semi-production from him specifically, I think that this offense can do just enough because I think this defense is really, really good. And I think that in the cold weather, the defense makes it a lot better. It will just be a matter of how are they going to tackle Tyreek. And if anybody knows Tyreek better than anybody, it's the Kansas City Chiefs. So going into Kansas City is going to make it very rough. I don't really like going chalk all the time. I think Miami could upset Kansas City. I think it's probably one of the more likely ones to happen on the AFC, depending on what your view of an upset is. It's just I get the feeling for this game that if it's low scoring, it benefits Kansas City, and I don't expect it to be high scoring because if it's low scoring, Kansas City can keep up with Miami's offense. If it's low scoring, I don't, or if it's high scoring, I don't think Kansas City has enough firepower. Which is a very weird thing to say about a Kansas City Chiefs team, but it's going to come down to Kansas City's defense, I think, and I think they're going to make enough big plays to hold on. It's going to be close, though. You know, you're probably going to look at a lot of people biting their nails and, you know, maybe being on the edge of their seats for sure. Let's go to the last AFC side of the game here. You know, the Houston Texans, Curtis, are a 4 seed against the Cleveland Browns, but I believe I saw that the Houston Texans are actually the underdog in this game. Do you see a 5 upsetting a 4 seed, which would be an upset based upon the seedings here?
Man, I love the Cinderella story of CJ Stroud. I love you know, DeMeco Ryans being a former captain of the team and in his first year coaching gets them to the playoffs when, I mean, they were all of a joke all of last year. You know, Cleveland is so good. I just can't see Houston beating Cleveland, even though Flacco is their fourth starting quarterback this year. The way he's been playing, and the thing is like we talk about Joe Flacco because we forget, like, you know, the past 5 seasons he's been like a backup journeyman, but from 2010, you know, until 2016, he was a great, you know, always top 10, you know, considered quarterback, and in the playoffs he's always been a great quarterback. So I love CJ Stroud. I love the Houston Texans. I just don't think they're ready, and I don't think you can count out old man Flacco in the playoffs. So I'm gonna go Cleveland Browns, and I'm gonna go Cleveland Browns probably like I'd say 10 to 14 points.
You on the Cleveland train too, Justin? Here,
I am. I think you just look at what. I think what Cleveland's able to do defensively is just going to be too much for what Houston has. I do think Houston has, 3 or 4 amazing playmakers that can make this a game. I mean, if CJ Stroud continues to play the way he did to end up number 2 on my quarterbacks ranking list, great quarterback play can beat out a good defense most days. So there's the possibility that, especially because this is in Houston, you are in a dome. You're not worried about the inclement weather in Cleveland, that you could have something special happen. But the ability to rush the passer that Cleveland has, and the ability to cover and force turnovers the way that Cleveland does is outstanding. And I don't see, we talk about, like, for me, I go Miami just because I think Miami has too much firepower offensively to not win this game. For the Dolphins Chiefs, I think Cleveland has too much firepower defensively to win this game against Houston. And then I haven't even talked about the offense yet. Joe Flacco, just to start off with him, he's experienced. He's done this. He's won a Super Bowl before. You're familiar territory for him. Forget the whole Cleveland Browns curse and organization and all that. This is a dude that's been there. His arm is one of the best in the NFL still. He's able to push the ball downfield aggressively, and that stretches and opens up everything for underneath routes for the running game that Cleveland is still very good at as well. I just see too many facets of this offense and what they bring defensively to say that they can combat anything that Houston will throw at them. I love what Houston's done, and I think they were a year early, but I think, again, it's similar to the Steelers. They weren't, quote unquote, weren't supposed to be here. So they can wake up feeling dangerous like Baker Mayfield potentially could, and anything can happen. It's the postseason. It's any given Sunday. So, but I would still take Cleveland, and I'll take Cleveland by 13 in this. I think Cleveland forces a couple turnovers in key situations, maybe a pick six or a fumble for a touchdown to extend it late. But this game has a chance of being, if Houston shows up offensively, this has a chance of being a decent game, and then Cleveland pull away late. But if Cleveland forces the sacks and turnovers and gets that offense for Houston off the field, we're looking at maybe a game that gets out of hand. Not necessarily a blowout, but a game that gets out of hand fairly early.
Experience. Joe Flacco, Amari Cooper, Kareem Hunt, David Njoku, even because Cleveland made the playoffs a couple years ago, have all been there. When you talk about all the playmakers on Houston's side of the ball, except for maybe a few defensive players, they're all young players. They're all impact young players, but they have not been there. D'Amico Ryans as a head coach has not been there. Kevin Stefanski has. So you have an experience factor leaning in one direction so heavily, and it goes unstated a lot of times, or it maybe gets overstated sometimes about how important experience is. But when you're in playoff football, that experience is invaluable. And the Cleveland Browns have it, plus might have one of the best defenses we've ever seen on this side of the 2010s or 2015s, even, however you want to look at it. Like, there's not a knock on Houston by any means. It's just, I don't think that with the lack of experience of being there, that they're going to be able to make this game close enough to try to eke it out or kind of slide into a possible victory formation at the end of this game. So I have Cleveland here as well. A little bit's also, I guess, selfish too, because I kind of want to see Joe Flacco take on Baltimore next week as well. And if 2, 3, and then 5 win, then that happens. So a little bit of like hope maybe there, because I just want to see that fireworks between the Browns and Ravens. With
You
Joe
must
Flacco
have read the script. You must have read the
script. Let's jump over to the NFC side, and I'll start with a game. Well, we'll start with the Dallas Green Bay game. Justin, I'll come to you first this time because you're in Dallas right now, unfortunately for you. I mean, you're in Dallas right now. And
yeah, don't let these Cowboys fans in the house hear you say that as your Commanders fan. Yeah.
I mean, you're in a soundproof room, or at least I'm going to pretend you are. So you're down there right now. So we'll start with you. The Green Bay Packers are an interesting team. I feel like they found some playmakers in the young, young offensive wide receivers. I mean, for instance, and I think they found some good ones finally. Jordan Love, like you said, he's made your list a few times. This Green Bay Packers team is an interesting, but they're just like the Houston Texans. They're also really young without much experience. Is Dallas on upset alert here?
I don't think so. I think Dallas defensively is too much. Although Dallas has necessarily not been the best defense like they were maybe the first 12 weeks of the season, they still can. I mean, Micah Parsons and the pass rush that they have can still get the quarterback. But what does put Green Bay in a potential advantage here is the fact that you do have Jordan Love there. That is, in terms of mannerisms and how he plays the game, very similar to a Brett Favre and an Aaron Rodgers, of being able to fall backwards and still put enough heat on the ball to hit the ball into tight windows and things like that. And that's going to be needed this game. Jordan Love is getting hot at the right time. But I don't look at this Packers defense that is kind of spotty. They 1 week they can force a lot of turnovers and get to the quarterback, and then another week they're just Swiss cheese, like giving everybody like a 15-yard gain here, 15-yard gain there, 10-yard rush there. And then you then look at Dallas's offense, and Dak Prescott has been playing good football all year. It's been rare to say Dak Prescott's had a terrible game. Dak Prescott, in a way, needs to be your quote-unquote game manager here. I mean, you can run the football in this Packers defense. You can get the CeeDee Lamb the ball in the midfield in like mid-range throws. So I still think Dallas has the edge here. And plus, it's in Jerry World. Overall, Dallas has been dominating whenever they go to AT&T Stadium and play. It's when they get on the road becomes the question. So I think the Packers have a bright future. which I hate saying as a Viking fan, but I do think they have a bright future. But I don't think this is the week that they move on. I just don't see Green Bay having enough to get through this game. So I'm going to take Dallas. But again, I still say this is a 10-point game by the end of the game. Green Bay has firepower to make this a game if they have to try to keep up. But I just think Green Bay's defense is too weak to stop this Dallas offense that is firing on all cylinders. So I'll take Dallas by 10.
Curtis, your thoughts on this game? Are you on the Green Bay train here, or is it Dallas?
It's really tough because I was just telling a Packers and a Cowboys fan friends that I have in another group that the Cowboys haven't beat the Packers since 1995 in the playoffs. That when Brett Favre was there and the Cowboys went to the Super Bowl that year. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers had that kryptonite for the Cowboys, and obviously the Dez catch, non-catch, and then or Aaron Rodgers just killing them on the shootouts they had. And you give Aaron Rodgers the ball at the end of the game with time on the clock. In the playoffs, he's going to make you pay. Recently, Aaron Jones has been killing the Cowboys in their regular season matchups. However, Aaron Jones has been hurt and ineffective this year. I know he's like at 29, about to be 30. He's at that age where running backs are just kind of running out of gas. AJ Dillon has not really been effective, and we've seen teams that have been able to run against the Cowboys. So if I see Green Bay being able to effectively run the ball against the Cowboys, I think that's going to make a big difference. You saw what Detroit did against Dallas. You saw what Miami and Buffalo did against Dallas. I mean, James Cook obviously ran all over them. So I don't think it's out of the realm of the fact that I think that would be game script. Like you said, Jordan Love. I'm sorry. Jordan Love has been playing insane. The Packers have no need. They have like every week you'll see like a different receiver out of like 6 different receivers that have a 100-yard game. If Watson is healthy, he's dangerous. You got Dobbs. They have a very, very good skill, young pass catchers on that team. I just think that their ability to run the ball is going to make or break them. And like Justin said, Dallas's defense is very, very good. However, I would like to see somebody like DeMarcus Lawrence create more pressure to help out, Micah Parsons and the other parts of that defensive line, because their defensive tackles are stout too. It just, I really think that Dallas is going to win this game. I think they're going to win big. I think it's going to be like a 2-touchdown game. But I'd like to say if Green Bay can get that run game going and they can run on Dallas like other teams have run and like how Aaron Jones ran, I think it's going to be maybe a one-score game. I still think Dallas is going to win, but I think it's dependent on how Green Bay's rushing offense plays.
There's 3 things for me to keys a victory for Green Bay in this situation, and it's not your typical, third down stops and turnovers. It's setting the tone early.
Yep.
You need to come up and smack Dallas in the mouth on your first offensive or defensive drive. Whichever you're on the field first, you need to set the tone. You need to make sure you let Dallas know that you are there, because in my opinion, I don't think Dallas has been very physical. I think that they have lost some physical games. Arizona was very physical with them, and they lost to Arizona. Buffalo, when they played Buffalo was very physical with them on offense, and you saw what happened with James Cook. So if Green Bay can come out and be physical, and I don't know if that's Green Bay's game, but if they can come out and be physical, then it's going to be key. This number 2 is going to be Luke Musgrave. As weird as that may sound, his pass blocking to help alleviate the Micah Parsons problem and then be a check down / safety valve for Jordan Love is going to be extremely important. And that will come in on third downs, specifically on offensive side of the ball. Jaden Reed, the rookie wide receiver, he was the 50th overall pick. With Christian Watson being healthy, we know that Watson can take the top off of defense, but Jaden Reed in that slot is probably one of the most dangerous wide receivers Dallas has faced coming out of that slot. And he can take enough pressure off the safeties that it could free up Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs in the middle of the field to really make that possession wide receiver really, really successful. Everybody wants to talk about the run games with Dallas. I personally think it's the passing game that is going to be the key for Green Bay because of these young wide receivers. Now, the flip side, they're a young team. Yes, the coach has been there. Yes, Aaron Jones has been there. A.J. Dillon has been there. But outside of those guys, there really hasn't been a ton of people. Jordan Love's getting his first game action in there, but he's been there before. It was just as a backup. I don't know what that experience will translate to, whereas Dallas is obviously very laden with a playoff, between Mike McCarthy, who won a championship with Green Bay. It will just be a matter of whether or not LaFleur can get this team hyped up enough to smack Dallas in the mouth on that opening drive. If that happens, this game could get ugly real fast because I don't think Dallas can handle pressure very well.
Well, and that's the thing too. I'll butt in and say this, that we've seen the Packers do this before. The couple times that Jordan Love has appeared on my list has been first or second play of the game. What are they hitting for? 50, 60 yard over the top. I mean, so they have the ability to go do that, and they may not be the same physical, okay, we're going to run A. Dillon or Aaron Jones down your throat like a team like Detroit has done or a team like Buffalo has done with James Cook. But they have their own style of shoving it down your throat, and that's your 50 or 60 yard, let's be aggressive, first play of the game, let's go take that shot.
Yeah. I also think that Dallas should be trying to rely on the hot hand at running back as well, and not trying to just force feed Pollard. And they really need to get Dowdle a lot of touches because he's been really hot at the end of the season. I think that Tony Pollard has proven they need to go get like a Derrick Henry in the offseason at like a $4 or $5 million contract, somebody that can pound the ball out and then give Pollard that workload he had with Ezekiel Elliott. It's not working with him as a lead back.
A lot of people love this Derrick Henry to Dallas thing, and I was telling my buddy today that I don't see it because Dallas moved on from Zeke because of the wheels and the age and the mileage that has been put on. Now, Derrick Henry's a little bit different of an animal. Obviously, he can still do it, but do you really want to invest in that position with a guy who's had just as much mileage? I would be more apt to see Dallas kind of draft a guy and maybe either bring back Pollard on a 1-year deal or maybe sign an Austin Eckler, type of situation. I think people are falling in love with Derrick Henry in Dallas just because of what Dallas may need in that sense. But I think that with them moving on from Zeke, it kind of tells me that they may not go that route. And I could be wrong. Obviously, it's Jerry Jones. Who the hell knows? Big splash. And then the other thing that will come down for Green Bay, I guess you could say this is like 3B for me, is Jair Alexander on CeeDee Lamb and whether or not you're going to have him follow him or not. Because in my opinion, Jair Alexander is one of the best cornerbacks in the league. I believe he is healthy. I don't think that he's a questionable in this situation. So that will be big because CeeDee Lamb has been eating a lot of people alive this year. But both teams are very similar in the boat where they both have had fairly ineffective running games this year, and they're going to throw all over the field. It's just going to be a matter of which defense makes a stop, and that's why my first point of Green Bay smacking Dallas in the mouth, whether they're on offense or defense, is necessity. For me, I still think Dallas is going to win this game just because I don't think Green Bay is going to have enough experience with these young wide receivers. But I don't think it's going to be as big as some people think it is. I think this game may be a lot closer, and it may surprise people at the end of the day that there might be a lot of respect on this Green Bay team coming out of this weekend. So I know you don't like hearing that, Justin, as a Minnesota fan, so I apologize. But
hey, Packers are going to be Packers.
I'm going to skip over my game of the week real quick, and I'm going to jump over to Tampa Bay and Philadelphia. I have not much to say about this because I think we all know where this might go. So, Justin, I'll start with you. Tampa Bay, Philadelphia. What's your little bit of a preview and prediction here for this game?
I hate the city of Philadelphia, Tampa Bay by 50. No, okay, no. Let me be silly. But no. This Philadelphia Eagles team is struggling very, very bad. You're seeing, again, like the conversation I had a couple weeks ago when the Eagles first played the Giants, and it looked like they were unprepared. They didn't seem to have an answer to the blitz with a team that blitzes a lot. You would think they would have gotten it fixed 2 weeks later when they played the Giants again, and it didn't seem like they did. I mean, they don't have any answers offensively. The offensive line that used to be a strength for them doesn't necessarily seem to be a strength anymore. Defensively, they don't have the pass rush that they used to have. And then their secondary has always kind of been the thing that everybody's like, okay, they can't cover anybody anyway, but a good pass rush like blinds that. So I don't look at Philadelphia and say this is a team that can go on a run and win a Super Bowl, especially with how they're playing right now. Jalen Hurts, I think, is regressing, and I hate to say that, but Jalen does seem to be mentally regressing, physically regressing, and isn't able to make the same plays that he even was making last year. So, and then I look over at what Tampa Bay is able to do. Tampa, just like the New York Giants, are a team that blitzes a lot. I can't remember the official numbers, but I want to say they blitz 57% of the time or something like that. Compared to the Giants, who are like a 64% blitz team. But again, they've shown the inability to be prepared or have answers to stop or counteract blitzes, even knowing where your hots are. And that's, again, regression on Jalen Hurts. So Tampa can get after the quarterback. They blitz a lot. I can see them forcing Jalen into a fumble or this run game into the fumble. Obviously, Philadelphia, if they want to be able to hold this game or have a chance to win this game, they're going to have to run the football very well and be able to take the ability off of Jalen Hurts' arm and maybe force him to run a little bit more. Obviously, get Kenneth Gainwell and the other running backs they have there involved, DeAndre Swift. But you look at Tampa and you look at what Baker's done this year. Baker's played tremendous. Most weeks he's woke up feeling dangerous, using his old quote. He is truly able to soak up pressure and make plays when his number's called upon and win those big downs of third downs or big crucial plays right before half of the 2-minute drill. He's coming through. It may not look the prettiest football in the world, but he gets it done. And so you look at what Tampa's done and what Baker's able to do and where the hot hands are. I still think this game is close because Tampa can play some pretty ugly games. And they're pretty inconsistent. And then you look at how Philadelphia's playing. This may be the worst looked game or hardest to watch game of all the postseason games. But I still think Tampa wins this one. Tampa probably wins it by 6. Maybe by a field goal or something, even though they may control it the entire way through. The score may be misleading to how maybe dominant the game really is in favor of Tampa. So I'll take Tampa by Tampa by 6.
Yeah, so he hates Philadelphia, Tampa by 50. Curtis, we're going to make that a soundbite.
hey, Atlanta sports through and through, other than Minnesota.
Yeah. Curtis, your thoughts on this? Because, I mean, Philadelphia, I think, what was it? They started off 10-1 and didn't reach 12 wins, something like that, or whatever it was.
Yep.
Like, pretty miserable. They really have struggled here down the stretch. And Tampa has some defensive issues, but what's your take on this and what's your prediction?
Judging by the past 3 games the Eagles have played, I don't. And especially last week with Hurts injuring his throwing finger, you had AJ Brown. Now, you see those injuries happen, and you see AJ Brown, you're thinking it's an ACL tear, and then the team comes out and says it wasn't that big of an injury, and then the next game, what happens? He could literally completely tear it. You know what I mean? You see it happen a lot with athletes across sports. You know what I mean? It's he wants to play AJ Brown. I don't like the narrative that the Philly fans or the Philly sports writers are trying to claim about him, because you never heard about any of this stuff in Tennessee. Now, maybe some of it's true. I don't like they're trying to blame everything on AJ Brown when they blame everything on the strong opinion wide receiver in the locker room. It's just I think anybody in the NFL would want AJ Brown on their team, but with him not being 100% and Hurts on that has to affect any throw he's making. His middle finger on his throwing hand, but he does have the ability to will himself scores. But like Justin said, that offense, it's like they're trying to do geometry when they're supposed to be doing calculus. Like if AJ Brown's not scoring, because Devontae Smith has all but disappeared. He's been hurt, I know too, but
I was say he's been hobbling around too. I mean,
Yeah, if AJ Brown's
like-
not scoring and Swift is not being, just punishing teams or killing them on the outside edge, this offense is like non-existent. And the defense, which used to be like they were just bullies, they're just not bullies anymore. They're just getting beat, and they're letting teams run on them a lot. A friend of mine last week was like, "Who do I start? Saquon or James Conner?" Now it was pretty close because I think both of them had similar outputs. I think Conner had more points, but I was like, man, start Saquon because the Eagles can't stop anybody from running, and Saquon scored 2 touchdowns. So Buccaneers offense is hot. I really, really don't like the matchup for the corners versus the Buccaneers wideouts. I think I actually think I'll give it to Chris Godwin. He's a Philadelphia kid himself, grew up there. I think Chris Godwin's going to kill him. I think Mike Evans is going to kill him, and I think Rachaad White's going to score on him a couple times. I think Buccaneers by 10 to 12 points. I'd say.
Philadelphia's banged up. I mean, AJ Brown, Devontae Smith. I believe DeAndre Swift missed last game too. I think he was out with an injury. Jalen Hurts obviously hurt his finger, and I'm going to try to say this as respectfully as possible because I don't put these guys under an umbrella when I say this, but I really struggle with the Philadelphia fan base because of how quick they turn on a team. And alls I heard all offseason last year was how they still would have smoked San Francisco, how they still would have done it even if Brock Purdy was healthy, et cetera, et cetera. And now I feel like that if Tampa Bay does come out and win this game, we're going to hear from Philadelphia fans, well, we were hurt. We had this person hurt. We had that person hurt. And I struggle with that because like you have to be objective as a fan, because even if you're a fan of a team, you can't just blindly just be, oh, we're the greatest thing ever, and then make excuses. It's just not how that works. And I feel like a lot of Philadelphia fans do that. And they point fingers at stuff and they think that they know that they're better than whatever it is that's actually happening. For me, this game is the Eagles secondary is not going to be able to hold up to this Tampa Bay offense. Now, Tampa Bay's defense is a huge question mark, especially their secondary, because their secondary is a problem. If Philadelphia was healthy, which we just talked about all of their major issues that they have been having, this may be a little bit closer of a game. But because of the fact that we're talking about a banged up offense, and I think they have some issues on the offensive line. There were some questionable guys on the offensive line as well. I don't think Philadelphia's going to be able to overcome it. This defense was ravaged in the offseason. They're definitely missing, Gannon, by all means, Coach Gannon over there. And I think that the lack of overall, I know there's a lot of people calling for Nick Sirianni's head. And I think that's a little, I think it's an abrupt reaction just because of how bad it's been. But they do need to figure some things out. But Justin, we talked about this also when it came to Philadelphia all year on this program about how even though they were, 8-0 and 7-0 and 10-1 and whatever, that we weren't really sold on this team being that top team that they were last year. And it really isn't because of the personnel on the field. I still feel like the personnel on the field's there. It just kind of feels like there's some kind of disconnect.
Yeah, there's a huge disconnect there, and whether that's regression from Jalen Hurts or that's losing pieces on defense, and now you combine all that now with injuries to key playmakers, it doesn't look good for Philadelphia at all.
Yeah, and I still think the Jalen Carter pick, for as much as great a player as he is, was a luxury pick and not a pick that should have been made by Philadelphia. I think they made a mistake. I don't think they'll ever say that it was a mistake, but I think it was a mistake because it wasn't a position of need. It was a luxury pick that they took him, and it's not working with him there. And I think they've missed out on some key players later in that first round that could have helped them at that spot.
They should have re-signed Hargrave.
Hardgrave could have been the guy because he knew the system, because they hired in-house. So it's not like it was one of those things where it would have been a drastic change. Jalen Carter's a fantastic player. Don't get me wrong. I mean, the guy's going to be disruptive for a long time. It's just when you have a position of need versus a position that is a luxury position, yeah, you made it to the Super Bowl, but with a pick that high, you needed to fill a spot that you were lacking in.
Yep.
And I don't feel like they did that. So, maybe that was one of a rare mistake by Howie Roseman. Jalen Carter may end up going on and being an All-Pro for the next 37 years or whatever, and end up being Aaron Donald, 7.2 or whatever, but it's a rare misstep at this moment for this team that should be, in theory, heading back to the Super Bowl. And it doesn't look like it at this moment in time. I have Tampa Bay in this game as well. Very close game, I think. And I think being at home is going to help Tampa Bay as well. Now, the big one, Matthew Stafford returning to Detroit. The Rams, one of the hottest teams in the league. Detroit, one of the hottest teams in the league. Both healthy at the right time. Interesting. And kind of streaking. Unfortunately, they have to play each other because I would have liked to see this a little bit later in the playoffs.
Yep.
But the storyline is there. Justin, Stafford, Rams, Lions. Who do you got?
Well, let me go ahead and give Krish some advice first if he's listening here. I am smacking the over on this game if you're betting. So
Yes.
yeah, I want to say the line was at 52.5 or something like that. I'm going well over on that. I think this might be your
this is going to be a shootout.
Yeah, this is going to be a shootout. I mean, you look at just start with Detroit for example. So before I even talk about the offense in Detroit, because obviously everybody knows it's great and what they're able to do right now. Defensively, over the last 3 games, they've kind of stumbled in the secondary, and they've been allowing more big plays. And obviously that's going to allow for a great matchup for Stafford and then the amazing weapons that he has of Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. And, I mean, even Tyler Higbee to be able to feast all over the secondary for the Rams, but against Detroit. But then you look at then what Detroit's able to do offensively. Detroit runs the ball like nobody's business with Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. And then Jared Goff is one of the best, if not the best, quarterback in the play action game in all of football, and being able to mirror that off of the run game and then feed it to guys like Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta, who is questionable for the game, but he should play. I don't think it's a question on if he plays. And then you even have guys like Khalif Raymond and other guys that are starting to step up for Detroit too. I mean, yes, their offense has kind of hit some lulls. I see a stat here that says over the last 3 games, they have a net yards per play of -0.7. But I don't see that as being an issue for them moving forward, because the offense is playing well. The defense, they're giving up 0.7 yards a play or whatever. But obviously it's going to have to be whoever defensively for either team, whoever makes the stop at the right time. Both offenses are going to get what they're going to get. And then you move over to the Rams. I mean, you get Matthew Stafford returning home to the place he spent a whole heck of a lot of time playing at. And the first time they're back in the postseason, he could very well ruin his old fans' hopes and dreams. So it's a game that I really wish I didn't have to be an analyst for and just sit down and watch and enjoy the game. I've been wanting this game for a while. I was hoping the Rams would end up beating San Francisco so this game would happen. So no,
I wanted it later. I wanted it later.
Yeah, I feel like it later, but
I feel like it's a disservice. I feel like it's a disservice. It's this early in the playoff. I want it to be like the NFC Championship game, or like getting into the NFC Championship game, like that. Yeah, that would have been awesome. All right,
but but now I got to actually make a prediction. So I mean, even though I feel like I haven't really said anything about this game, it's just going to be one of those games that whoever's offense makes more plays and whatever defense steps up in one particular moment is going to be the team that wins this game. And unfortunately, one of these teams have to lose. But I will say, and this is not Viking bias at all, I feel like what the Rams have on defense is able to make a play more than I would trust maybe the secondary of Detroit to make a play. But then there's also some factor you have to say of Dan Campbell and Dan Campbell's aura of this defense and the way he has a team playing and they're willing to go bite somebody's kneecaps off. Like that type of mentality can be something that propels you to make a play too. So I still lean towards the upset here. I think the Rams pull this one off. But I think this is probably one of the better postseason games we've seen in a long time. And we walk out of this game saying this sucks that the Lions lost or this sucks that the Rams lost, because either one of these teams really deserve to go a whole lot further than what they're going to go. So I'm going to take the Rams. I'm going to take the Rams by 1. I'll take the Rams by 1. Maybe they go for 2. The whole Dan Campbell type thing reversed. They go for 2 at the end of the game. Let me just throw a random score out there. Let's say 49-48.
Wow. Okay. That's a huge scoring game right there. Yeah, I'll get to mine in a minute. Curtis, let's get to you here. Obviously, I feel like that this is a game that a lot of people are looking forward to. You know, like the story behind both these teams is incredible. The Lions making that trade, rebuilding through. The Rams somehow finding these late round gems, and they have found multiple on this team. Yeah, what's your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I agree with everything Justin said. I'm gonna make this quick as my phone is giving me the it's on its last watch here. But you
could have told me to shut up.
No, it's fine. The thing about the Rams is that the Rams are kind of like the Cowboys, in which they play down to the level or play up to the level of whoever they're playing against. And I feel like whatever version of Detroit we get is, I think the Rams are going to play them tough, because you saw the Giants gave the Rams a trouble the other week, but you've seen the Rams also beat some good teams. The Rams offensively are as dangerous as any team in the NFL, and I don't think that the Detroit Lions defense is going to be able to contain Williams, and I don't think they're going to be able to contain the receivers of the Rams. But just because Justin chose the Rams, and I do want to choose the Rams, I'm going to say Detroit by like 3 or 3 to 5, 3 to 6, something like that, just because I think it's going to be a very close game. And like Justin said, I think it's going to become.
Oh, I think he died. All right.
I'll finish the statement. Whoever makes the play at the right time. There you go. Boom.
I am going to go out and say something here real quick. I think that the winner, whoever wins this game, has a legitimate chance to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl.
I agree.
And I think that I think both of these teams, either one of them could represent the NFC in the Super Bowl. And I think San Francisco is the most complete team in the NFC, obviously. But I would not be surprised to see this. Now, with that being said, there's one key component to all of this that nobody has even mentioned yet, and that's Aiden Hutchinson. I think that Detroit has a better pass rush on the outside and the edge than the Rams do. The Rams, a lot of their stuff is up the middle with Aaron Donald and Kobe Turner. Kobe Turner, who is a 5th-round pick, by the way, a rookie as well, another gem that they have found because the dude is a legit player as well. I think Detroit's secondary is actually better than the Rams secondary. It's close. I think both these secondaries are built exactly right for their teams.
Yep.
I think Raheem Morris has done a fantastic job with the Rams secondary. It's just a lot of young players, a lot of late round players that people haven't really heard of. The other key component here is because of Detroit's running game. I think that they're able to control this game and keep the ball out of Matthew Stafford's hands so Matthew Stafford can't get into a rhythm to burn them. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. Don't get me wrong. I think that they're going to do just enough between Gibbs and Montgomery to be able to limit how much damage can be done for the Rams. I just really hate the fact that I see this game now. I really
Yeah.
do. I really do. I hate it so much. But I love it at the same time because it's a game that I'm going to look forward to this weekend. And the fact that this is not the Monday night game is disappointing as well. I know why they did that because it is one of the most sought after games. So they want to make sure that they get as much viewership as possible for it. But man, I don't know. I'm going to say the Lions, but this is going to be a situation where I don't think I'm going to be disappointed with whoever comes out and wins this by any means. So I just hope for a great game there, and I hope that we are right, that it's an explosive game, a lot of fireworks, and
Yeah, we're building it up to end up being a 3-0 barn burner.
I am telling you right now, I am so excited. I can't tell. I cannot tell you right now how excited I am to be able to see Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, and Amon-Ra St. Brown on the field in the same game. Like that is probably one of the biggest things for me when it comes to this because over the years, I've kind of moved away from the running game as much and more into the wide receivers. I still think the running game is extremely important.
Mhm.
I think running backs should still get paid the same. Like get paid, based upon their value. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying all that. I just really love watching wide receivers play and how they go about attacking a defense. And those three are three of the best.
Yep.
That I think that a lot of people don't realize because it's not about the explosive plays for them. They can be explosive.
Yep.
It's about the separation that they get. It's the game inside the game and how they go about getting their yards. And they're all three very similar wide receivers. Like they work the middle of that field, the sidelines, or like the body control, like the hands, like.
Yeah, I mean, and you look at what those three are able to do, and then you even back that up to the offensive play callers that they have and how they're able to scheme them open, and the quarterback play that gets the ball to them. Like, and then even, I mean, because obviously I'm the quarterback guy. Like you look at even the storylines of these two guys. These two were essentially traded for each other.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, you look at this, and both of these teams found the perfect situation for them, even though they still had it pretty good having each other in the opposite scenarios. So, I mean, I'm looking forward to it. I've been wanting this game ever since I knew that this was a potential possibility. I mean, I know I've said maybe a couple weeks too early that after I saw the Rams play and Stafford starting to get hot, that I was saying this might be the most dangerous team in the NFC. And I'm gonna stick by that, and I still have the Rams winning this game. Even though I think if the Lions win this game, I could totally see that happening too. That's the one part of me making a pick that I hate. Now I gotta be wrong if the Lions go win, even though there's a half of me that's like, oh, the Lions can go win this game too. So, but no, hopefully it lives up to being the best game of probably NFL playoff history that we've seen. Maybe go rival the Super Bowl we saw a couple of years ago. I mean, there may even be better than that. So hopefully this game goes into overtime and doesn't have some different crazy ending where obviously first person who gets the ball, or well, rules have changed now, so that doesn't even matter. So, I mean, hopefully we see a offensive masterclass where every team scores over 40 points and go to overtime, and then it takes like a ballsy 2-point conversion to win the game, ends on some amazing high, and it's the game that we all thought it would be.
Maybe Taylor Decker gets the game-winning 2-point conversion. The one good news is Brad Allen's officiating crew will not be officiating this game, as he is not going to be there in the.
If Taylor Decker does end up having that 2-point conversion, obviously you've got the Philly special in Philadelphia. You've got other statues that are being put up anywhere. That's going to be a statue that's put up in Detroit.
Yeah, and I think part of me also might be kind of rooting for the Lions too here in this situation because the Rams have won a Super Bowl recently. They have won a playoff game. The Lions have not been there in so long. And again, it's a feel-good story and et cetera, et cetera. But I really do feel like that both of these teams are dangerous. And like the Rams to be able to rebound the way that they rebound from that awful year coming off the Super Bowl.
And even how they rebound off of some of their bad losses this year.
Right. It is incredible, and I think it's a testament to Sean, McVay, and how well he has really kind of. There was always the question like, "Oh, is he going to return?" Da, da, da. I think he's found his love for football again somehow. Maybe it was finally getting married and getting that off the plate, and all the other outside stuff that kind of reinvigorated him into the game of football. He's way too young for me to be able to step away from the game, in my opinion. Like he's younger than me by like 2 years, and
he's a Georgia folk legend too. He won the GHSA Player of the Year over Calvin Johnson. So
yeah, like
he's a player too.
Yeah, so I mean, it's just I don't like what happened with him and Cam Akers. That's just from a personal standpoint as far as being a Cam Akers fan because of Florida State fan. But it happens, and I understand it happens. And he's a great coach, and he's deserved everything that he's gotten. And I'm glad that they returned to the fact to where they are from where they were a few years ago as well. But the part of me, obviously, I love a good underdog story, and it's nice to see the Lions finally have a head coach in situation there that they have a legitimate chance to do it. And to be honest with you, I'm also a little bit worried about the Lions because if Ben Johnson does take a head coaching job, will it be a Kansas City Chiefs situation next year? Like I don't think they'll hire Matt Nagy because I think they're smarter than that. But like, you're not the offensive coordinator coming in. There's going to be issues there, right? Like, is there going to be an issue there as well? So,
but see, that's the thing to take it all on back to your Commanders. If the Lions lose earlier, you can interview Ben Johnson earlier.
Hey, no, don't put that. No, don't put that. We requested him. We requested to talk to him and Aaron Glenn. Don't do that to the Lions, though. Man, you just cursed them. If the Lions lose this game,
it's the Viking fan in me. I got to.
Oh man,
Michigan, you can't have two titles. Dallas, you can't have two titles either, because typically the way the sports world works now, every city that wins a title gets two titles. So you got a chance with it with Michigan, and you got a chance with it in Dallas. So I want neither one of those to happen.
Well, the Panthers can have their chance at the UFL season. So
there you go.
Yeah, we'll make it a little bit easier for you in that sense. I don't have anything else. The only thing I do want to say is if the Rams win this game, the likelihood of them playing San Francisco is much higher because of the 6th seed, which makes it a very dangerous game for both San Francisco and the Rams. Unless Green Bay obviously upsets Dallas, then it would be the Rams versus the winner of the other game. And I don't know if the 49ers want to face this Rams team, if you want my honest opinion.
No, I don't think they do. I think they're hoping Detroit can shut them down.
Yeah, I think that's what they're hoping for, to be completely honest with you. Or best case scenario is Green Bay beats Dallas and then the Rams beat Detroit so they don't have to face them until the NFC Championship game. Yeah. Hypothetically speaking, of course. We'll see, though. Who the hell knows? It's been 2 hours and 15 minutes. Justin and I made it work. We had a couple people pop in here and there. I think Chris popped in for like 10 seconds. And then, we had Curtis here for – if you stuck with us this long and heard us rambling, just a two-man panel and talking football like, we always do here. We appreciate you sticking around. Justin, go ahead and take us home, my man.
Yeah. So, hey, regular season's over. Thank you to every single person that has ever tuned in to this 18 or 19, or we're on what, episode 22 now. So
something like that.
The 22 weeks that we've had the Goal Line Stand, it's been an absolute pleasure for both me and Michael to be on here and all the other panel casts for this regular season. Thank you guys for tuning in. All you viewers, you matter. But hey, we still got a couple more weeks to go do this thing. So come on back next Tuesday night as we recap those NFC and AFC wildcard rounds, get my top 3 quarterbacks of the week, or maybe I'll still make it 5 depending on how guys play. We'll see how we go from there. But no, if you like it, make sure you go subscribe to Shady Sports Network. We're what, close to 1,200 or something now.
Yeah,
we're getting closer and closer to there. So go and subscribe if you like all these amazing shows that we've got here on the channel, player interviews, different shows covering all these different football leagues, teams, and everything. So if you like that and you're into that kind of stuff, subscribe to us. smash the like button on this podcast or on this show if you love this show. And again, tune back in 8:15 Eastern on Tuesday. On Tuesdays as we recap this with our 2-man panel, 6-man panel, 20-man panel, whatever. So, but yeah, no, I mean, we're always open to questions. If you want to ask us players that are on it or anybody else questions too, make sure you leave those in the comments. But yeah, but with that being said, that's Justin Arth, that's Michael Washington, and all the other guys from the Goal Line Stand. Peace out, and we'll see you next week, hopefully after a great wild card weekend.
And right before we sign off here with the video, I just want to plug real quick some of the upcoming stuff that's going to be happening here on Shady Sports Network as well. My summer showcase show is returning this summer, which covers the ELF. I'm also doing a spring showcase show, which is going to cover the LFA down there in Mexico. We have not decided on something for the IFA just yet, but Justin hopefully will be part of that. Maybe. Yep. We do have an indoor show that we are going to be doing where we cover indoor and arena football as well. And AFL, as always, some team shows are going to be coming up as well in that sense. So, and obviously, like Justin said, follow the player, for player interviews as well here at the Shady Sports Network. And that will do it for tonight. I wanted to get those plugs in real quick too. Oh, and go follow Pat R over at Analyze and Educate as well. Dude is fantastic. Follow him on Twitter, follow him on, and subscribe to him on YouTube as well, because you won't be disappointed with his work. So until then, next week.
I'm a game changer.